The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. 2018 marked the 24th anniversary of BronxTalk. Much like the 23 years before, in 2018 we focused on a wide range of subjects that make up this wonderful, diverse borough. We did politics, housing, development, education, Bronx arts and culture, health issues, and literally any and everything that's important to the people of the Bronx. In fact, tonight's program is the 1,170th that we've ever done. In the 54 that we did in 2018, 7 of them were political debates. So let's start there. Maybe the most significant debate we held this year was for the 34th Senatorial District Democratic primary between incumbent Jeff Klein and now Senator-elect Alessandra Biaggi. It was a heated and informative program. Let's take a look.
Opponent started her campaign in January. She's been peddling this false narrative that somehow I empowered or made a Republican majority, which isn't true, and I blocked progressive legislation. First and foremost, over the last 4 years, as we can see now, the 32nd vote that gave the Republicans the majority is Simca Felder from Brooklyn. That's why we're 31 Democrats right now in the Democratic Conference, unable to get all of these things done. So I think we really need a civics lesson.
I have taught civics, actually, for many months, and also I am an attorney. And so I know it's been a very long time since my opponent has been in law school, but the word illegal means against the law. And so anything that is deemed to be raised illegally, which is what the independent money has been deemed, needs to be returned. It is part and parcel of being an elected that you abide by the laws.
BronxTalk has been well known for its political programs, specifically giving Bronx residents unfiltered access to their elected officials. Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. has been the program's most frequent guest over our many years. And of course, we invite all of our elected officials to talk about their districts on BronxTalk. Here's a sampling from 2018. You mentioned something which I think is quite accurate, that the living wage issue started really with that project and your advocacy on that project. And you want to add something, because I want to follow up about unemployment. So then I wanted to just talk about unemployment numbers, which you are proud of, that have been cut by more than half, down to 5.5%. You said more than 110,000 Bronx residents have jobs. Why? How did that happen? What was the process that got us there?
Just so the viewers know, I'm not saying that. These are from numbers from the state Department of Labor. So these are real numbers. These are real numbers. And the reason why it's happening is because not only are we seeing more and more interest in economic development. Look, since I've been the borough president, we've seen 68 million square feet of economic development, everything from the expansion of health facilities to residential to office buildings coming in here. So all of this creates jobs. And then the way that we've been doing it is working with the Department of Labor, working with the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation. As developers come in, letting them understand that we want them to do business in the Bronx, but we also want them to do business with the Bronx. So we have been identifying people who are looking for work, and we tie them in and marry them to employers who need those individuals depending on their skill set. And so it's been working.
And that conversation, and just to do a little inside baseball here, that conversation happens from the minute you start talking with somebody. If you're going to come here, we're going to insist that you hire Bronxites.
If you're a developer, Gary, and you come to my office and you say, look, we want to be able to build this on this plot of land. I say, okay, then you come to the borough president's office, whether you need a ULURP, whether you need an address, whether you're looking for capital funding, or just some level of support. We say, fine, who are you using for the cement? Who are you using as a subcontractor? Who's going to do the construction jobs here? And then we help with the BOEDC identify different vendors, different businesses that are either selling cabinets or cement or plaster or wood that are in the Bronx who, as they grow, they continue to employ more and more Bronxites. It's the way that we've been able to not only reduce the amount of unemployment in the Bronx, but it's also a way where I think the psychology and of Bronxites is changing, because not only do they see all of this development, but more and more, life isn't perfect, but more and more Bronxites are feeling like they're part of that renaissance.
She's now potentially one of the most recognizable Democratic faces in the nation, a Latina from the Bronx with a great following. Is there an idea here maybe that you change your tactics, you look at somebody, you bring her in or something like that? Again. Or do you say this is part of the evolution, so to speak?
No, look, I think these things are very organic. First of all, there's always respect for the will of the voter. She won that primary. She is now the Democratic nominee. As a Democratic Party, we will support her 100% to the extent that she wants to work with us closely. We've reached out, would love to connect. I'm sure she has a lot on her plate as she begins this transition. She still has to win in November. In this county, we all know she's almost assured to win in the November general election. We look forward to that. And we will support her every step of the way. On the things we obviously agree mostly everything. But on the policy side, I think this is important. Most of the issues that her campaign brought forward on issues, if you look at those issues, those are things we have been championing, even here in the state level for many years. Universal health care was a pivotal point of her campaign, making sure that everybody has access to it. The last 3 years in a row, under the leadership of Speaker Hastie, we have passed universal health care for the state of New York. Republicans in the Senate did not. And we can't, as Democrats, lose sight. It's not just a battle with Trump and the federal government. Here in the state, we are trying to take back the state Senate so that we can pass some of these policies, rent protections that we fought for, criminal justice reforms that we have been championing. So a lot of these issues that came out of this campaign are not new to us. Even on the immigration reform, we want to pass the DREAM Act. We have been championing these things and doing them. So again, it's not a difference of policy. We have championed those policies and been effective in getting them done in the state of New York. Gay marriage, paid family leave, $15 minimum wage. When you talk about people's economics, the fact that the Bronx has the lowest unemployment in its history, these are all things we've accomplished as elected leaders, working together with the business community and local communities. So on issues, we feel really good about what we've done, and we know the Bronx is aware of that, and we want to continue to get the message out.
Do we have a problem with leadership in the Democratic Party to conceptualize those ideals that you're talking about for the rest of America? Because we don't, I honestly don't see that on the national stage.
Well, I think you're sitting across one of the national leaders right now of the party. So I would say when we talk about...
But you weren't on TV on CNN when Chuck Schumer was on there. That's what the problem is.
Right, I wasn't on at that point, but I'll be on Fox tomorrow on Tuesday in particular reason, because there are actually more Democrats in raw numbers that watch Fox and other networks. Now, to your point, do we need a broader conversation right now and a more aggressive rhetoric? Yes, we definitely need to be much more direct about it. I think, I would say, obviously I wasn't next to Senator Schumer, but I think it's safe to say it's hard for us to really process the magnitude of what happened today. You know, when you had White House staff that were off and on the record conveying to reporters that this did not go as planned, that they were shocked, they were surprised, they didn't make comments because they even themselves didn't realize it would be this bad. So I think when you're internalizing in this aspect, so when you think about who was out there, the conversations that were conveyed from Senator Schumer, from Congressman Eric Swalwell out of California, from many leaders across the country, and quite frankly, Republican leaders. You know, I think Senator John McCain's statements of saying it was an absolute disgrace and one of the worst presentations of an American president in our history is absolutely true. When you have Dan Coates, a former U.S. Senator, a former ambassador, the Director of National Intelligence, conveying again, we believe and stand by what we know, that meddling occurred, all of us should be speaking out and being engaged.
The mayor is certainly a progressive in the beliefs he holds and in the policies he enacts. But where he has something in common with Donald Trump is his approach to handling the press. Right? There is a pattern of antagonism toward journalism coming from City Hall, just like there's a pattern of antagonism coming from Washington, D.C. under President Trump. We've seen assaults on the independence of the City Council, assaults on the independence of the Department of Investigations, assaults on the independence of investigative journalism from the de Blasio administration. So I do agree that there is some truth to the analogy.
Let's talk about this idea that he had suggested, or it had been suggested, that he was going to, fire somebody investigating him, much like the concern that President Trump might fire, Robert Mueller. What do you make of that? Was that realistic? Do you think he was seriously considering that? And what does that mean and say about people like you who are really trying to run proper investigations to get things corrected?
So the Department of Investigations exists to investigate corruption in city government. It was the driving force behind the investigation into NYCHA's lead safety program, or the investigation into Rivington, a whole host of scandals swirling around the de Blasio administration. The mayor at one point contemplated firing the DOI commissioner. And I have a simple belief that if you're an executive, you should not be able to fire the person who investigates your administration or your appointees or you, right? Mayor de Blasio should not be able to fire the DOI commissioner for the same reason that Donald Trump should not be able to fire Robert Mueller.
Bronx culture and history is becoming more clearly defined every single day. In 2018, two of our most enjoyable shows featured a connection between the Woodlawn Cemetery and the New York Rangers. And also, we took an inside look at Bobby Sanabria's brilliant reimagining of West Side Story. That show also included Jamie Bernstein, Leonard Bernstein's daughter, who told a remarkable story about the origins of the West Side Story music. The signature notes at the beginning. Da-da.
That was good.
Okay, thank you. Don't ask me to do it again. You wrote that this came from the chauffeur, that this was where Leonard Bernstein got the notion. That was extraordinary to me.
Yeah.
As a Jewish boy who grew up in the Bronx, loving West Side Story, that was unbelievable.
Right. Well, in the shofar, the ram's horn that they blow in the synagogue on the high holy days, makes those notes. Ba, 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 ba. So my father took those three notes and turned them into the key of the whole score of West Side Story. Those are like the notes that you can track all the way through the score, right, Bobby?
Yeah.
It's so ingenious, and it's the first thing you hear. Ba-dum, ba-dum. It's how the jets whistle to each other, and if you anagram those three notes in different ways, switch them around, you get Maria, and you get boy, boy, crazy boy.
It's the whole
Stay
thing.
cool, boy.
Why did you think that what Bobby was doing was a good thing? And I know you're very protective of your father's legacy, appropriately enough, because it deserves to be protected. But this, you seem to have said, you know what? I'm endorsing this. My family endorsing
Endorsing
this.
is too dry a word for
Have a glass of water.
how we all feel about what Bobby did. My brother and sister and I are all crazy for this project. And Alexander, my brother, was the one who first experienced it because he was at Manhattan School of Music when you did it with your students that first time. And he came back and said, oh my God, I heard the greatest thing. You're just gonna flip when you hear what Bobby Sanabria is cooking up. And then I got to see it when they did it with the Multiverse Orchestra at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola last year. And then I went crazy.
It's just been amazing. It's been a journey, and it's only been a year so far with those kids. But every time I step to those classes, it just I learned so much from them. They think I teach them something, but they're
teaching you.
They're teaching me, and it just feels good to go back home and share that with my wife and my kids, what I've been doing in the Bronx. And it's just been a great journey so far. I mean, it's just the beginning.
Talk to me about what, and you're wearing the shirt for it, what is the Student Leadership and Legacy Program at Woodlawn?
Well, I want to share with the kids what I've experienced in my life. I was one of the shy kids when I was their age. I got bullied. I was good at sports, and that's what saved me. And I could relate to those kids and I asked them what's their legacy. And some of them they don't know their
It never
legacy.
occurred to them.
It never occurred to them. So why would a French Canadian come up and ask them the question? But they, after 10, 15 minutes in the classroom spending with them, they realize, well, you can be kind to your teachers, could be kind to your parents, and your
friends.
siblings, your friends, and they're everywhere. And they realize, well, we do have a legacy, and then we talk about it, and we just keep on going. I noticed that you have the Mark Messi. We wanted you to
Wow.
have the Metto jersey, and it's.
Thank you so
No,
much.
thank you for
so
having us.
I have, as I showed Stefan, that I had the, oh my goodness gracious, talk about, here we go. This is Bronx Talk, boy. my director just said, oh, that's nice, Gary. I like it. Wow, thank you
No,
so
thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow. And I'm proud to say it's actually autographed on the back of the jersey. Stefan, thank you so much. Well, this is part of your legacy, being able to bring joy and happiness to a Ranger fan. I see my producers taking pictures. Bronx Talk has prided itself not only in the political and cultural programs we've presented over the years, but also informative shows about Bronx issues, keeping Bronx people at the cutting edge. This year, we talked about many issues, including guns, declining Bronx teen pregnancy rates, immigrant children who were separated from their parents, housed in the Bronx, and also we took a sneak peek at a film that documents the 70s when the Bronx was burning.
When I started working in the South Bronx, that was 1972. The area was just teeming with people and teeming with culture. I mean, people on the fire escapes, music, the smell of pernil and bustelo, and kites flying on the roof, and pigeons, and a real sense of family. And I don't care how bad things were. And in early 70s, we had crime problems, and I think we're in Fort Apache, where I live, the 41st Precinct, had the highest unsolved homicide rate in the country. But if you got back to your block, I don't care what was going on, you were safe, there was family, people were taking care of one another, there was a real sense of community. And that, I kind of fell in love with that, because it was a real wonderful thing to see people in circumstances that from the outside didn't look that great. But multicultural, but taking care of business. The fire started around the mid-70s. And by the time the 80s came, 70% or 80% of our neighborhood was burned out, and the people had left.
Are the children in this circumstance in a different or more or less difficult situation from other children that you have dealt with over the years? Or is it really the same thing, just the politics of it are a little difficult?
I think it's the same thing. Again, these are children in need. Our mission, our philosophy as an organization is to assist any child who's in need, and that's what we focus on. We don't ask where you're from, what your circumstances are. We just look at, is there a need that we could provide and meet to make sure that the children are safe and that their quality of life is enhanced.
Can you give us the range of ages that they came from at the Mexican
Sure.
border?
So we serve probably from 3 years old to about 17.
And so the children in this, coming from the Mexican border, fit within there pretty much?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to ask this. What do you do with a 3-year-old who is without his or her parents, and how do you, what can you do for them? I want to join you and hold them and welcome them. I think we all have compassion. I'd like to think we all have compassion for these kids.
So like the traditional foster care system in New York State, our parents that we use as foster parents are trained for many, many weeks in how to take care of kids. So most of these foster parents have been with our agency for multiple years and have experience working with toddlers and introducing them to American society.
Congressman, the president has laid out the justification for this get tough policy, saying that if we don't close the borders, there will be millions of them coming through. He said they will bring opioids and drugs, and they also, certainly he's talked about the M13 gang, and they will bring crime and gang, and they're also, of course, many people say they're stealing jobs from American citizens. Is that justification appropriate, and does it make sense to you?
Those are all scare tactics and the strategies that have been used throughout the history of our nation to scapegoat people. The fact of the matter is that study after study after study shows that immigrants are far less likely to commit a crime than U.S.-born citizens. I don't know of any undocumented immigrant that walks out of his house in the morning and say, okay, let me go get myself arrested today so I could get deported back home. In fact, they are very much, they comport themselves very much within the parameters of the law. They're more law-abiding citizens than U.S. residents themselves, and U.S. citizens themselves. They are, by far, in all studies after studies, show that disproportionately by a lot, U.S. born citizens are likely to commit more crimes than undocumented immigrants. They just don't go out there. If you're working washing dishes and send money back home, I don't see why you will go out there and jump the turnstile, get picked up by a police officer, and get deported. I just don't see it. And so this information, because that's what it is, this information has been perpetrated and has been peddled out there to make it look as though immigrants are bloodthirsty criminals. It couldn't be far from the truth.
What is it that would decrease teen pregnancy? So obviously, if there are fewer teens who are engaging in sexual activity, that's one way. If we are able to provide contraception and really effective methods of contraception. So when you and I were growing up, the pill was the thing. Now the pill is antiquated in comparison to Nexplanon, which is a contraceptive that gets inserted into the arm that's good for up to 3 years, or the IUD, which can be effective for up to 12 years. So essentially, you could be almost vaccinating a young person from becoming pregnant during their adolescence so that they're ready to become parents after they, say, finish college.
That would scare many people because they would say, well, wait a minute, we don't want to start giving license because the behavior that leads to those things is probably not the best kind of behavior either for a young person. So how do you balance the fact that you have the technology, the techniques, whatever, with the fact that you need to develop young people who know how to make good decisions for themselves?
So we work with the DOE. So we're working very closely with the Department of Education. We've trained over 500 teachers in New York City to
teachers in schools
to implement evidence-based sex ed. So right now, when I went to high school, and I went to JFK High School in the Bronx, you got your health class in 11th grade, which is way too late for most young people. We already know that 15% of 9th graders are already sexually active. So if we're providing health education in 11th grade, we're missing the mark. We have to provide sex education way, way earlier so that young people can make smart decisions about their health.
I'll say about 2 years ago, I had a close friend of mine get murdered around here, around the Fordham section. He had an altercation with his cousin. I guess other people were having problems with his cousin, so as he was coming out of the building, somebody shot him in the chest. Was I sad?
How old was he?
24.
My goodness gracious.
Yes.
And what were you going to say?
Was it sad? Yes. Was I surprised?
I'm sad
no.
right now.
I wasn't surprised.
Because it's so prevalent.
It's normal to me.
Others have a story, right? Tariq, you have a story as well. Tell me.
My cousin, before the age of 21, unfortunately on his doorstep, shot right in the chest as well. Altercation happened. And
he had a disagreement with somebody?
Yeah.
And he got shot in the chest. And others, Zakia? Zakia, I'm sorry.
Yes. My father died when I was 2 years old in a staircase in my grandmother's building. Shot him in the back.
Do you know something about the circumstance?
Not at all.
Not a lot. Angel?
Me, not personally, but in my neighborhood, there are a lot of people that do get shot. And I remember waking up to the police, like, doing a sweep. Like, they weren't even loud about it. They were just picking up the body, putting it in an ambulance. And
like another day in, I hate to say another day in the Bronx, but frankly, another day in America. So that will do it for our look back at Bronx Talk in 2018. Big ups go to our fantastic producer and crew. We thank Michael and Marissa at BronxNet. Our producer is Helen Greenberg, the directors William Guzman and Nicholas Marrero. We also thank all the great young people, the cast of thousands who work on the program each week. Now, we'll be back next week with a New Year's program featuring Wandering New York with great Bronx photos, and then we'll be all set for 2019. But most of all, I want to thank and send best holiday wishes to you, the people of the Bronx. BronxNet is your voice, your views, and your vision, and I couldn't be more honored to try and represent that here on Bronx Talk each week. So best wishes and happy holidays to you, and let's bring peace to the Bronx in 2019. Good night.